Assalamu alaikum. Masā al-khair al-jamii, and we would like to welcome all of you to our Spring 2022 academic writing series. Inshallah, in this semester, we will have 14 workshops, different workshops for graduate students, for undergraduate students, and also for staff and faculty members. So today's workshop is going to be about common challenges in academic writing, presented by Dr. Summaya Elhussain. Thank you, Dr. Summaya. The floor is yours. You may start now.
Thank you, Dr. Basim. Assalamu alaikum, everybody. Good evening. Thank you for being here tonight. And inshallah, it's going to be enjoyable and productive, inshallah. I've got my eye on the chat box for your comments and your questions and your ideas, inshallah. So tonight we're gonna cover the following points. Okay, so I can get my slide to move. Okay, yes. At the beginning, we're going to look at the features of academic writing, some of the features, because it is something that is broad and we cannot just cover it in one single session. We're going to look at some of the features of academic writing because many of these features can actually pose a challenge to students, especially if they're second language learners and they're not used to them, they don't have knowledge of them. So we're going to discuss that at the beginning, and we're going to try to answer the question, why is it challenging? Especially to our own students whose English is not the first language. And we're going to look at some sources of potential challenge and why are they sources of challenge. Because I don't forget that I'm a teacher. I always think like, classroom practice, what kind of activities, what kind of strategies, what kind of teaching practice that can help me and my students sort of combat and overcome challenges of academic writing. So I'm gonna suggest some practices, maybe some strategies, and we're gonna reflect on that and see how good, how effective, to what extent they are effective. And of course, I'm gonna make use of your own insights and reflections and ideas on that. Finally, maybe I'm going to look at your comments. I'm going to take some questions, and I'm going to suggest a couple of websites to use to help your students and my students. So yeah, I mean, the academic writing is challenging because it has some features that our first language does not have, or the student's first language does not have. Academic language is something that's strictly controlled by rules and conventions. The type of the language that the students have to use is specific and controlled and managed, and it has to be a specific type of language. And the structure is also is conventionalized. Certain ways of writing are not allowed. The amount of words, the amount of ideas we can include are also controlled. So academic writing is just follows certain conventions, and especially when it comes to its different genres. Each and every genre has got its own rules and conventions to control and manage it. Academic writing is precise. We cannot say more, we cannot say less. So we have to be right to the point. We tend sometimes, one of the weaknesses of our writing is we state an idea and we try to sort of explain it in more and more. And the more we explain it, the more words we use, and that is going to make our writing imprecise and is going to make our writing weak. So academic writing is precise. Everything is counted and everything is watched and managed. we have to, I think I spoke about, I had a workshop before about wordiness. And my advice, I always say to my students, if you can say something in 5 words, do not use 10 words for that. So we have to be precise. We have to be right to the point.
هي sparkling water. طب هو ما يشربوا لحاله.
Okay, and there's no tolerance for digression with academic writing. Academic writing is structured in a certain way. Certain things have to come before other things. Certain parts of writing have to come after certain parts. So it is structured in a certain way. We have to follow a certain format and a certain structure. And it has a certain structure for a reason. I mean, according to John Swells, the structure itself of our writing has got a certain communicative purpose to serve. So, and John Swells calls it the moves. I mean, you know, which moves come first, which moves come afterwards, etc. And each expression, each idea has its own place in the text, on the written text. Also, academic writing covers various academic genres, and each, and as I've just said, each and every genre has its own structure, has its own technical language, has its own form of grammar, has its own form of writing. Writing a report is different from writing a descriptive essay, is different from writing a comparative and contrastive essay. It's different from writing a research article to be published. So different academic genres, and each one of them is controlled by its own features. Academic writing is also very objective. There is no room for, okay, so can you all hear me fine?
Yeah, we hear you clearly.
Okay, good, alhamdulillah, because somebody said something. Okay. Yeah, yes, academic writing is objective. That means there is no room for I think and I feel and in my opinion. So, so there is no room to express our own opinions when it comes to academic writing. Everything is, there's no room for us to express our own judgments. So it has to be very objective. It has to be very entirely objective. Yeah. And academic writing has something else. I mean, obviously my list is not exhaustive. There are more features that academic writing has. For example, academic writing gives a lot of consideration to the readers. So you have to have the readers in mind while you're writing something. What are their expectations? What do they expect to see? What do they expect to take away from your writing? What kind of knowledge do you want to convey to those readers? So you have to have the readers in mind. You have to have a purpose, and everything you do in your writing, everything you do in your text serves that particular purpose, works towards serving that particular purpose. So you have to have your purpose in mind, and you have to have your readers in mind as well. So these features, all these features cannot just be learned overnight. I mean, if we think of our second language students, it's all these features pose a challenge in their learning. So and the problem with us as teachers, we give them a piece of writing and we just expect them to sort of produce an excellent form of writing without sort of explicit instruction, and that's a gap in our practice that I think we need to sort of cover somehow. So these are some of the features of academic writing that can make it difficult and challenging to our students to learn. According to Highland, academic writing is a big challenge to the students in general, to graduate students in general, and to undergraduate students as well, even native language speakers. And of course, to second language speakers, going to be extra challenging. According to Highland, there are 5 areas that can sort of pose or represent challenge to our learners. The first one is content knowledge. So to be according to Highland, to be an effective writer, you have to know your content. That means you have to know your topic inside and out. You have to have, you have to have something to write about. You have to have some knowledge, some kind of knowledge base to write about. And how do we expect you to acquire that knowledge? Is of course via reading. You have to read and read and read from different sources and take ideas and information from different places to be able to have a knowledge base, to be able to write about your topic. And not just content, not just the ideas and the information you want to write about, the knowledge of the system. And we mean by that, Highland means actually, he means the language, and the language that you're going to use as a tool to convey your message. So the language is a system. It's a system. It has a certain vocab that works in a certain way. It has a certain grammar rules and system that works in a certain way. It has a certain kind of structuring, etc. So the knowledge of the language and how it works. Knowledge actually of the technical language that you're gonna use for your writing. So content knowledge and the system knowledge, the tool that you're going to use. You have to have knowledge of the tool that you're going to use in your writing. Another knowledge is that Highland talks about is process knowledge. And what he means by that is the process of writing itself. You have to have knowledge of outlining your writing. You have to have knowledge of how to draft it. You have to have knowledge of what to include in your first draft, how to sort of go through the stages of writing your text until you get to the polished, finalized version of your writing. So you have to have knowledge of all that. You have to have knowledge of the stages and be able to go through these stages. Yeah, so that's another knowledge that learners should practice to be able to acquire. And also genre knowledge. You know, what kind of this text is it? Is it a report? Is it a description? Are you writing for publication? Is it a book chapter? Are you going to publish in a scientific journal? Is it an arts and humanity journal? So it is because the genre controls the type of language you're going to use, and of course it controls also the technical terms you're going to use and the conventions you're going to follow in your writing text. So the genre controls all that, and also genre also includes knowledge of the reader. I mean, knowledge of the reader means what? There's also the reader knowledge. Knowledge of the reader means what? It means, as a teacher, for example, I do belong to a certain discourse community, for example. So we use the language of pedagogy, we use the word pedagogy, we use certain technical words that has got to do with instruction and teaching, material design, evaluation and learning assessment. All this technical language that I use as a teacher makes me belong to my own community of practice, which is my discourse community. My discourse community are the other teachers who share the same technical language with me. And we have, of course, the shared knowledge base of, for example, teaching and classroom practice, etc., etc. So the reader, your reader is the person who belongs to the same community, discourse community that you belong to. And that is why you have to be able to meet the expectations of your reader. So what does the reader expect to take away from the article? What does the reader expect to find there in your article? Which part should come first? Which part should come last, etc. So we have to have all these, the teachers, the students have to have all this knowledge, types of knowledge, and that makes academic writing challenging. But of course, students can be trained into all these kinds of knowledge. Teaching can take place and they can get there. Students can get there. I mean, Highland is not saying that this is like an impossible mission and that can never be attained and achieved. He's not saying that, but he's sort of raising awareness of the kind of knowledge, of the types of knowledge that the writer, the second language writer, has to have to be able to produce a text that is efficient and effective. So far, so good. Comments. Okay, so Highland also says, describes academic discourses, and he says many students find academic discourses to be alien, to be specialized, and to be privileged. A student would think, would be feeling and thinking like my teacher and my lecturer is using this advanced and academic language. I'll never get there. Meaning, I'll never be like my teacher one day. I never be like my lecturer one day. The students, because they are new to an academic context. So once they get into the lectures and they start reading in their books, etc., they get a feeling that they're entirely distanced from the kind of academic language that is used by their lecturers and by the books, the language that's written in the books. So they get a feeling that this kind of language is alien to them. It's highly specialized and it is privileged. But this is just to describe this type of language. But of course, via instruction, via practice, via reading, the goal can be attained. We can become part of this discourse community that uses this privileged kind of language. So that is the feeling that students get at the beginning, but later on, as they sort of assimilate into this academic community, they start using, they start practicing the language itself and they start learning it and they just become part of the context. Okay, so what are the potential sources of challenge? I think we have mentioned many of them. The nature of academic language is one of them. The nature of academic the nature of the features, like, for example, like genre and the structuring and formatting in a certain way. All these are potential source of challenge. But also, and we mentioned it before, that academic writing is highly conventionalized. Meaning, there are certain rules to be followed, and sometimes we sort of teach these rules and we teach the conventions, and yet the process takes a long time for the students to get there. It is just a matter of practice. It's a matter of practice and reading, because reading gives, as we're going to say later on, reading is going to give exposure. Also, another potential source of challenge is lack of organized instruction of the required literacy practices, meaning what? Meaning there is no overt instruction. I mean, academic writing in particular is a course that has to be taught on its own. I mean, there should be time devoted to it. There should be materials in place, etc., etc. It has to be organized in a way that sort of help and assist the students. Obviously, the consultancy that for example, the Academic Writing Center provides is part of that organized instruction to sort of train the students to get there. But teaching overt teaching in an explicit way, teaching the literacy practices. And when we talk about the literacy practices, we mean paraphrasing, we mean summarizing, synthesizing of information. All these are literacy practices that are needed in any academic context. So if we have overt and explicit instruction to all that, of course, it will be something that's effective. Later on, we're gonna compare between two approaches that are used in teaching academic English. We're gonna discuss later on the product approach and the process approach, and look at the advantages and disadvantages of both of them. Our second language learners sometimes resort to translation. Sometimes the technical terms are a big challenge. They are, for example, I can envision them reading an article, for example, a medical article or an article that is relevant to engineering or any kind of discipline that they're doing. And they come across a lot of technical words that are new to them. And sometimes they feel they need to continue reading because the ideas discussed are more important than knowing the meaning of the words. So obviously, knowing the meaning of the words will help them getting to the ideas, but they want like a fast way of getting to know the meaning of these technical terms. So they sort of use translation for that. And of course, there are a lot of tools that are available nowadays to give effective and very fast translation. But of course, translation always works against its user, because translation, of course, can be the fastest way, or one of the fastest ways of getting to know the meaning of words, but it is the least efficient and the least effective way to learn words. And as I heard somebody saying, can't remember the name exactly, in one of the lectures, somebody said translation can give you the meaning of a word. Sorry, translation, you can translate words, but you can never translate meanings. Meaning and we always say something is lost in translation, would say something is lost in translation. So translation will never give you the picture, the whole picture. Yes, yeah. Okay, so translation is not a good idea at all. I do not advise anybody to use translation. It works against you, but trying, of course, using other strategies, and your teacher can practice that with you, like trying to guess the meaning of the word from its context and using an English dictionary, etc. All these methods and tools can help you get to know the meaning of the word. And the more you read, lack of exposure is what I mean by not reading. Actually, reading is really important in any academic context. Reading is entirely, completely, 100%, extremely. I cannot actually emphasize and re-emphasize this much more, but reading is really, really highly advisable and recommendable and important, because reading gives you everything. It gives you not the knowledge that you're looking for. It gives you the language that you can learn and use later on. It gives you it gives you an idea of how your own discourse community is behaving and thinking, and it teaches you new words. It teaches you how these words are used. Yeah. Yes, I like that. Yeah, Dr. Yahya. So, yes, I like that. Yes, I like summarizing a lot, and that is really a perfect way, one of the good ways of improving language. And of course, summarizing is also, as a skill, is needed in academic writing. So, yes. So reading gives you a lot of things, as I was saying. Reading gives you the knowledge, and it gives you ideas, and it can also inspire you. You read and you get ideas from your reading. You read and you get inspired. And this is usually something that happens. And of course, reading is also important for your own text because you're going to use citations, you're going to quote from the text that you read to support your arguments in what you're writing. So reading is I don't want to say more about reading, but yes, it has everything. Reading has everything. And of course, reading will also help you with the genre, because the genre is something that is really hard to teach sometimes, unless we use different books and resources. But reading will also expose you to the different genres in your own academic field, how to write a report and how to write a descriptive paragraph, how to write a essay, how to write a research article, how to write an action research. So reading will give you all that. So some writing concepts and practices do not exist in first language. When I thought of this, I thought of the technical terms, but I think the first language does have technical terms as well. But I thought of structuring, some practices like structuring your writing in a certain way. I do not know about scientific writing in Arabic. I'm an Arabic speaker, and I do write Arabic, but I do not. But I think certain practices. I mean, when I think of English and Arabic, I think about them as two different systems of languages, and they can never meet anyway. So each one of them works differently from the other. So I think some practices and concepts do exist in academic writing in English, and maybe they don't exist in Arabic. Maybe there are some in Arabic that they do not exist in English. So, and that is why translation should never be used. Some translation doesn't help because of that. So structuring your writing in a certain way, in academic writing, in academic English, is important for your writing to be effective, and it's important for your writing to be efficient and to meet the expectations. So, so I'm thinking like this is one of the practices that does not exist in the first language. And again, my list is not exhaustive. Maybe you can add to my list, other sources of challenge, other sources of potential challenge. Yeah. But when I think of the students, the type of students we have today, who are so much used to getting information very quickly from the internet, and they are not they sort of miss out on opportunities and chances of processing what they read. For example, like Dr. Gandhi was saying, you read and you sit down and summarize. Yeah, that is really a very good way of doing it, because when you summarize, you're remembering back what you have read, and there are certain cognitive and mental processes going on in your mind as you're sort of retrieving this information that you have just read and trying to structure and restructure the sentences back again into a summary. So it's a lot of cognitive things going on as you're sort of you summarize what you read. But I think of today's learners, I think, they're sort of used to having something really having something really quickly, and sort of resorting to social media for a lot of things. So technology can sometimes work for them, but sometimes can also work against them. So that is something that can also be a source of challenge. And maybe sometimes they don't have the patience to sort of sit down and process what they read and process what they read, etc., etc. Yeah, I mean, and many people will think like, sometimes the internet works against learning in to some extent, but of course we are free to agree or disagree with that. Okay, so when we talk about academic literacy practices, what exactly are we talking about? These are my own ideas. You can add to that. I'm talking about the formality of the style. The style has to be formal. And of course, people say that a lot, and it gets repeated a lot in lectures and sessions and classroom by teachers, etc. But it is important to be formal in writing, and the students do need to sort of make a difference, strike a difference between what is formal and what is not formal. Because they do not know, we shouldn't expect them to just know it. They'll have to be exposed to that. We should give them examples. We should practice that with them inside a classroom. The books they read will give them the formal academic style that they should use in the writing. And the structuring is another thing. The ability to paraphrase, use different words. And the ability to paraphrase is important because sometimes some writers, second language writers, tend to sort of repeat the same words over and over again. So they sort of use the word, a word more than one time, while it's, it makes them effective writers if they can paraphrase. They will also need paraphrasing when they have read from a source and they want to sort of they want to avoid direct quotation. They do not want to sort of overquote. So maybe they can paraphrase to avoid plagiarism, etc. Yeah, so being able to paraphrase is an important literacy practice for academic writers. Summarizing ideas, because we expect them to read from different sources, to read from different books, get ideas from different places and summarize these ideas, because of course they're not going to use all the ideas in the books. They will not need them. They will only need those ideas that are sort of relevant to the topic they're writing about. And of course, we also expect them to synthesize information from different places. So they read from journal articles, they read from book chapters, they read from books, they read from different places, and they should be able to sort of be able to synthesize information, integrate this different information from different places and sort of use that to support their arguments. Accuracy of vocab and grammar, that goes without saying. Yes, vocab has to be technical, has to be academic, and to get that formal style. And the grammar has to be accurate. And when it comes to the grammar, I think one of my colleagues, she had a workshop on grammar and vocab accuracy. That's a very important literacy practice for academic literacy practice, because as I say to my students, grammar is not about the rules. Grammar is about what we want to say. It helps us in conveying the message, and it helps us to say what we want to say. So accurate grammar is very, very important. And of course, being able to show your stance as a writer, where do you stand from this argument, is something that is very important. Which argument do you support? Which argument are you against? That's important, because at the end of the day, you have to have a stance. You have to have an argument that is your contribution to the field of knowledge. You're gonna agree with a certain idea, but of course you're gonna have your arguments, and your arguments are gonna be supported by quotes from your reading, and that is, and then you draw your conclusions, etc., and that will be your contribution to the field of knowledge. Okay, so again, still talking about the challenges, because it's just all about the challenges. So other challenges that I thought of, and again, my list is not exhaustive. Excessive quoting. I came across some people saying, like, I do not know what my supervisor wants. My supervisor says, go read, go read, go read. And I read all the time, and I include quotes from my reading, and I do not know why isn't he or she happy. Some quoting is unsolicited, meaning it is not needed, not required. We shouldn't have excessive quoting. And also that will, of course, run us into the risk of plagiarism, because if you quote excessively, some people would like to show that, yes, we have read, but that is not the idea behind it. You read from different places and you sort of integrate this information and you add your own thinking to that. And you read because you have an argument you want to support, but we will not just copy from different places and add discourse to our writing, and without having like a sort of sound judgment of what to include and what not to include. So we have to have our own evaluation of what to include and what not to include. We have to quote, but not excessively. Yeah, that is one of the major challenges, I think. It is because sometimes you quote and quote and quote and you're happy with your piece of writing, but then somebody else reads it and they're not happy with it because they can see that you have quoted a lot and you have quoted something that is not supporting your argument, and you have quoted something that shouldn't be there, and you have quoted a lot, too much. You have overdone it. So quoting as much as it's important, supporting your argument from literature is important, showing that you have read the relevant literature is important, but of course you have to have your own judgment of what to include and what not to include. So, and of course, we have always to have to remember plagiarism and yes, of course, paraphrasing, and we said it, you paraphrase it, but sometimes, now we have to cut, but we have to sort of be careful. We have to cut, definitely, we are required to cut. Cutting is important, but we should not, what I'm trying to say is we should not overdo it. That's number one. And number two, if you paraphrase, if you read something from somewhere and you feel that it is really good, it's really useful, it's going to support your argument, and you want to paraphrase it because you do not, direct quoting is a lot and you do not want to run into the risk of plagiarism, you want to paraphrase, make sure that you do not, the meaning is there. So make sure that the meaning is not lost somehow. Yeah. Yes, you can use your own words, and that is something that's required. Actually, it is required. Paraphrasing is required. So for some quotes, for some ideas, you're going to paraphrase them. For some ideas, you're going to just copy them. You're going to quote them directly from the source. But of course, you're not going to quote like 2 or 3 lines. Definitely. So that is overdoing it. Yeah, that's unsolicited. Yeah. So yes, quoting is important. It shows that you have read, the relevant literature. It shows that, you want to support your argument by somebody who's an expert in the field. But of course, at the same time, we have to be careful and not use it excessively. We shouldn't overdo it. Yeah. So that is one of the challenges. And for example, because I came across, going back to quoting, I came across this article that talks about certain cultures, and they're talking about some cultures where the students feel like, the lecturers are struggling with postgraduate students, because postgraduate students feel like we just copy, we should copy all the time. And when the lecturers try to sort of explain to them that direct quoting and direct copying is not something that is always advisable, they will feel like this is not right, because it's in their culture, they feel like something that's written by an expert should not be touched. Do you get me? Like something that is written by an expert, they should show respect to that expert by not touching and not changing anything in their course, just copy from there and put. So that is something that I read in one of the articles. It is just part of an academic, just part of this type of culture. So yeah, people have to be, forget about hedging. And hedging is important because we do not want to show bias. Yeah, so using words like appears to be, you know, somebody believes, perhaps, you know, most likely, seems. Using hedging is important in academic language. Possibly, assume, looks like, etc. All this, yeah. Plagiarism, yeah, plagiarism is, we should not copy. That is the way to avoid plagiarism. We shouldn't just copy, yeah? We should not just copy directly. We have to quote, we have to use some quotes from what we read, but we shouldn't do it excessively. If you do it excessively, that is gonna run you into the risk of plagiarism, yeah? You have to copy, but you have to use your own judgment. You have to evaluate what to include and not to include. Yeah. So plagiarism is an offense. It's an academic offense. It is something that is serious. And the problem is the consequences of plagiarism are serious. So people think it's a crime. I tend to think it's a crime, but and that is why we should not copy. It is not actually ethical to copy somebody's words and present them as ours. Yeah, yeah. Sure, use your own words, paraphrase. Use some direct quotes, but do not overuse it. It is just all that. It's just being judicious. It's just being, being judicious. Yeah, if the word is right. Use your own judgment. Use your own judgment. Yeah. Paraphrasing or rephrasing. Rephrasing. Okay, paraphrasing and rephrasing. Okay, so rephrasing is what? Rephrasing is you read something and you like the ideas, but you write it in your own words. You use your own words. As for rephrase, that's paraphrasing. As for rephrasing, you say exactly the same thing in a different way. For example, I'll give you an example. You want to say, for example, some countries are thinking about. So instead of saying, and that is, instead of saying thinking about, you can say considering. Yeah, I mean, saying exactly the same thing, but using a different. No, I mean, terminologies are terminologies. I don't think you can change them at all. I mean, if you cannot call a cell, a human cell, you cannot call it anything else. Yeah. The difference between paraphrasing and rephrasing. Okay, so paraphrasing is you read something and you use your own words to write it. That's paraphrasing. Paraphrasing is you read something, you like the ideas, you write these ideas using your own words. That's paraphrasing. Yeah. As for rephrasing, actually you use, I think they're pretty much similar. For rephrasing, you say exactly the same thing, but in a different way. Rephrasing. To rephrase something is to sort of say the same thing, but in a different way. So they're pretty much relevant, and both of them are really important for academic writing. Yeah. Okay, so paraphrasing, of course, we paraphrase a lot. We paraphrase because we want to avoid direct copying, and we want to avoid plagiarism. Yeah. Okay, for paraphrasing or rephrasing. For rephrasing, I've just given an example of think about. You can sort of use consider. So it's saying is changing using another word that means exactly, using a synonym, using another word that means exactly the same word. Yeah. Okay. Yes, the meaning is the same, but different presentation. Yes. That's right. And we want to sort of avoid excessive quoting. It is very academic. Yes, that's right. Yeah, yeah. Yeah, so we rephrase. Yeah, we rephrase. So yes, you're right, Dr. Gabri. Yes, thank you so much. We rephrase because we want to explain something. We want to make more clear. Yes, we want to make it clearer. But the academic skill that we need is paraphrase. Actually, we paraphrase. We paraphrase something that we read. So we read something and want to avoid direct quoting or direct quotation. I want to avoid plagiarism, so we paraphrase it. But we rephrase something, we say exactly the same thing in a different way because we want to make it clearer. That's right. Yeah. Okay, so paraphrasing, yeah. Say, for example, right, okay, so look at this sentence. If we have a sentence that says the internet, okay, let's say, for example, the internet has, okay, so a lot of people think like that in academic writing. Of course, paraphrasing, I'm saying paraphrasing, because rephrasing is used a lot in spoken language. So if we say the internet has a lot of negative, I don't want to say things, but I can say issues, factors, aspects. Okay, so if I want to say the internet has a lot of negative aspects, I can paraphrase this. Who's going to help me? I can paraphrase this. Who's going to help me? If I want to paraphrase it, paraphrase. Yes. I can say the internet is criticized for its negativity. I can say that. I can say the internet criticized. It's criticized by many people, something like that, or criticized. The internet could impact others negatively. Thank you so much. Yes, yes. And if I want to use, maybe, fewer, maybe number of words, maybe I can say the internet is always criticized or something like that. That means it's spoken about negatively. The internet contains a lot of disadvantages. Yeah, that is actually paraphrasing. No, rephrasing is something that we use as speakers to make a point clearer to the people who are listening to us. Yeah. So say, for example, I would say, for example, something, and I would say, in other words, this and this and that. So that is rephrasing, saying exactly the same thing, but in a different way. And it's not used in academic writing, you're right. Yes. Yeah, so rephrasing, I would say exactly the same thing, but in a different way. And rephrasing, of course, is something that is used in spoken language more than written language. We use paraphrasing in academic writing, actually. We use paraphrasing in academic writing because we read something and we want to sort of use it in our argument. Yeah, okay. Another challenge is forgetting about hedging. I cannot say something will happen. I have to say something is likely to happen. Because if I say something will happen, that kind of language is not academic. Yeah. If I say something will happen, for example, the results will be this and this and that, that is not hedging. That is using a language that's not academic. Yeah. I cannot say something will happen. I cannot say these results will be reached and finalized. I cannot say will. I have to say is likely, or it seems, or looks like, something like that. Or perhaps. I have to use hedges. Thank you. I have to use hedges. Yeah, so that using hedges and boosters in academic writing is another challenge. And arguments have to have evidence. Arguments have to evidence. I have to, sometimes arguments they lack evidence. The arguments are not well informed because the writer has not done enough reading, and the writer is not quoting and is not supporting. The writer is not supporting their argument by something substantial, like a quote or ideas from the reading. Yeah, sometimes arguments show bias. In academic writing, we have some kind of balance. Academic writing has to be balanced, and that is meaning what? Meaning we do not sort of we do not lean heavily on one side of the argument and forget about the other side. Yeah. Now, if I want to talk about that, if I'm not supporting using the internet as an educational tool for children, for example, that is my own idea, and I want to show my reader that that is my stance. But at the beginning, I will not write from the beginning all the disadvantages, and that is why I think the internet is good, etc., etc. No, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to show the advantages and what research says. I'm going to show what research says about the advantages of the internet and how it is as a technical tool has changed a lot in today's life and in today's world and in today's means of education. I'm going to say that first. Yeah, and then afterwards, I'm gonna show my argument, but of course, I'm gonna show my argument again, supported by evidence from research. Yeah, so bias is something that is really dangerous, and it shouldn't be. There should be some kind of balanced kind of writing. Yeah, so that is another challenge. So far, so good. Now, this is, I'm going to ask your help with this. I've got two texts, yeah, and they are, of course, they're different. So as a teacher, I'm asking teachers, yeah, as a teacher, if I ask my own students to compare between these two texts, what am I trying to teach them? Okay. What is one feature, one kind of academic writing that the teacher is trying to teach? If the teacher presents these two, if the teacher asks the students to compare these two passages. Any help? Okay, using adverbs at the beginning, conveniently located in the heart of the city at the most prestigious address. The Metropole Hotel combines the noble character of baronial home and the classic sophistication of an international hotel. The second passage, punctuation mark, I agree. But I'm talking about one aspect of academic writing, maybe a part of academic writing, run-on sentences. Stakeholders were today questioning the management competence of the Lexus international hotel chain following the downturn in business at the beginning of the year. Is the language different? Yeah. Okay. Well, what is objectivity? Okay, so the first one doesn't have objectivity. The first one does not, because it has an adverb like conveniently. That's not objective. It shows an opinion. That shows an opinion. And prestigious, that shows an opinion. Adjectives and adverbs always show an opinion, don't they? Yeah. Okay. Okay. So the first one has got the first one, you get the feeling, the first, I mean, this one, I mean, this passage, if you look at this passage, you'd think like this passage is from where? Where is it from? What message does it convey? What message does it have? What kind of reader will be interested in it? Yes, I think the recording will be available on YouTube. Yeah. Okay, the hotel. Okay, talks about the hotel, talks about its location. What about the second one? The second one is doing what? What is the message in the first one? What is the message in the second one? For which one? The first or the second? Yeah. The second one is formal. The second one is formal. Yeah, it's more formal, yeah? The language used in the first one is the language of what? Prestigious, conveniently located. It's a language of the first one. Conveniently located in the heart of the city at the most prestigious address. The Metropole Hotel combines the noble character of baronial home and the classic sophistication of, yes, thank you so much, yes. Marketing, advertising, Walton, yes, yes, thank you, yes, yes. So the first one is an advertisement. The first one is advertising. The first one is advertising. The second one will be, the second one will be, okay, so that's the first one. Yeah, booking site, like booking.com or something, yes. That's the first one. The second one will be like, okay, a meeting of directors, board meeting of the, yes, yeah. Board meeting of directors, yes, I agree with that. A report about business, yeah. Like something like the Financial Times or something like that, yeah. Something like that. So if now we've got it, now we look at the difference between the, yeah, we look at the difference between the two languages and the two texts and how they're structured and the choice of the words, So if I'm presenting in my classroom, I'm presenting this text and I'm presenting this text. And as I have just done with you, I'm asking my students to compare these two texts. What am I trying to teach them? What am I trying to teach? That's my point. What am I trying to teach them? That the language of this type of writing is different from the language of that type of language. Sorry, the language of this type of writing is different from that type of writing, right? So what do we call this? Different tones, formality, that's right. Types of messages conveyed, yes. Because of the type of the message, the language system, and I'm also trying to teach genre. I'm trying to teach genre that each, I'm trying the choice of words. Now, genre means what? Genre means the choice of words, and how we structure these words, like in academic writing, like in a business report, you will never find conveniently, you will not find an adverb at the beginning of a sentence like that. You will not find that. Yeah, in academic writing. So the structure of the writing, the choice of the word order, yeah, all these are determined by the type of genre I'm writing within. If I'm writing a business report, you know, the second type of writing will be the most appropriate one. This one will be the most appropriate one. If I'm writing for a business magazine, if I'm writing to a board of directors, business directors, businessmen, this will be the language, like, you know, the shareholders and, you know, the downturn in business, they're questioning the competence of the management. You know, the choice of words and the structure of the writing is, you know, determined. So when we teach genre, we teach genre like in a way that is, this is just one of the ways to teach genre. We ask the students to compare between the two texts. If they compare between the two texts, they can sort of draw the conclusion that the kind of language is entirely different. And they get to know, they get to be introduced to the concept of genre, Yeah. Yeah. So, so far so good. Questions? Okay, so genre is one of the, comparison. Genre is one of the, teaching genre is one of the challenges, actually. It's one of the challenges, but one of the ways to do that is to sort of present the students with different texts from different sources, talking about different topics, from different disciplines, from different fields and areas, and ask them to compare that. They're gonna sort of, if they learn in this way, if they compare and contrast and they reach the conclusion that this text is different from that text in this and that way, this kind of knowledge gets internalized. This kind of knowledge becomes part of the knowledge, and they will know how to practice that in their own writing. Redundancy is another thing. Redundancy simply means saying too much. Yeah. So because being concise is something that's important, and redundancy causes a lot of damage to the writing. It affects the word count. That's number one. The teacher asks you to write an assignment of 500 words. You keep repeating yourself, and then you end up writing 700 words, 800 words. It also affects the cohesion. If you keep repeating, the reader is going to get lost among your ideas because you keep repeating the same ideas over and over again. You're using a lot of words to say exactly the same thing. You're using a lot of words. So it does prevent writers from being concise. And it is not a good practice in academic writing. Now, the problem is, because I got asked this question, as a writer, sometimes you feel, because as a writer, you are not in the reader's shoes. As a writer, sometimes you feel like your message is not very clear to the reader. Yes, of course, it does affect the flow of the ideas. That's right. So sometimes you get a feeling like, I should remind my readers of this point and that point. And this what creates redundancy. It's just a feeling you get. You get a feeling that, it is, you need to say this again. And redundancy is a really easy trap to fall into, because in speaking, we use redundancy a lot. I'll give you an example. And when we had a workshop about wordiness, I gave similar examples, actually. We talk about, sometimes we talk about the size of a place and we say it's very small in size. We say that. We say something is very small in size. Yeah, I'm gonna write it in the chat box. We say, for example, something is small in size. So once we say small, we don't need to say in size, do we? We don't, yeah? We say small in size. We say she laughed. We say, what else do we say? We say she smiled happily. We say that. So once we say small, we don't need size. Once we say she laughed, we don't need happily. Once we say she smiled, we don't need happily. Yeah? So like going around the roundabout, something like that. Going around We don't need that. Yeah, that is redundancy. In speaking, we use that a lot. We use redundancy a lot in speaking, and it's actually, in speaking is good, actually. It makes your speaking nice and colorful. Yeah, yes. I mean, you don't need it for writing. You don't need to, yes, we don't need to write you don't need redundancy for writing. I don't know about that. Okay, so she smiled nervously. Yes, I mean, because it all depends on the message you want to convey. You can say she smiled nervously because you said that because you've got a good reason to say that. But if I say she smiled happily, that is redundancy. Because once she smiles because she's happy. Nobody smiles when they're sad. Yeah. So that is redundancy. We use redundancy a lot in speaking, and that is why it's easy to fall into redundancy when we're writing. Yes, in speaking, yes, yeah. To stress something, to repeat ourselves, to make our speaking more colorful, more interesting. Yeah, it is just a natural way of talking. You know, when people talk, they just talk like that. It's just a natural way of speaking using redundancy. But in writing, it is never a good idea. So yeah, referencing is another challenge, and of course, referencing is something that's important. You quote from a place, you have to reference it. You quote from a book, you have to reference it. You quote from an article, you have to reference it. Even if you quote from YouTube, you have to reference that. So the kind of referencing system you use is up to you, but you have to be well educated in that. You have to know it very well, because obviously you don't want to make mistakes. Yeah, there are many types of yes, I agree with that. So Dr. Gambi is saying it was once said that in writing, if you can't explain your ideas in short sentences, probably you don't even understand them. Yeah. So you have to have, you know, good understanding of your own ideas to be able to convey them and write about them concisely. And I do agree with that. Thank you so much. Yeah, so the referencing system that you choose, these are the ones that are well known and used a lot by researchers and experts and, you know, the people in the field of academia. Sometimes it's just down to the institution, your own institution, which system to use and stick to that. But of course, you know, they're all good. But once you choose, you pick one of these three systems. If you choose one of them, you just stick to it till the last minute. I mean, you're not gonna sort of bounce between APA and Harvard, for example. Yeah, so if you choose Harvard, you just stick with Harvard all the way along. If you choose APA, you just stick with it all the way along. Yeah, so referencing is important. There are a lot of websites, many universities, and I think King Abdulaziz is one of them. They do have a booklet that teaches you about referencing. They, you know, a lot of universities will have this information available on the websites because they know how much the need is by the students. So that's important. Once you code, you have to reference. Otherwise, you run into plagiarism. You cannot take something from somewhere and just present it as yours. I'm gonna turn into a teacher now, and I'm gonna, you know, talk to teachers and suggest some ideas of you know, how to sort of make it easy for students and how to practice and how to teach some features of academic writing. It is just a few ideas, and you may agree or disagree, and you may practice in a way that is way better than my own ideas. So I think student socialization into the world of academia is something that is really important, and it's just all about it. It's all about education. It's all about educating them, teaching them how to do it, because we cannot just expect them to know, because they will not know overnight. They will have to train, they have to practice, they have to learn. And teaching in an overt, explicit way is, I feel, one of the best ways to do that. And I'm gonna suggest some ideas to be able to do that. Explicit instruction of academic writing and academic writing features is important, I think, in my understanding, and give them tasks and activities to be used outside the classroom, like research projects, etc. The group work is something that is really important because what happens in academic context is you give them group work or project work, they go and meet again and use the same type of language that is used inside the classroom. So that is sort of recycling to the academic language that is being used inside the classroom. It gets learned better, it gets used, it gets practiced, it becomes part of their knowledge. So some websites can also be used for autonomous learning. I've got a very good one that I myself use. There's something called EAP Foundation. It is a very good website if you want to improve your academic writing. It has all the skills in it. It has all the skills. I also sometimes used, when I was doing some kind of academic work, I also use something called Text Inspector. And Text Inspector will tell you what. Text Inspector, sorry, Inspector, it's a P actually, not an O. Text Inspector is a tool that will show you if your writing is basic, elementary, advanced, etc. Yeah, EAP Foundation, English for Academic Purposes Foundation. It's a website. Yeah. Text Inspector will show you if your text is advanced enough, because it will actually examine you the vocab and the sentence structure that you're using in your writing, and it will sort of grade it. It will grade your writing. It will grade it. It will tell you your writing is just elementary writing. Your writing is intermediate, is at the level of intermediate, and your writing is at the level of an advanced language. And it uses European framework. I forgot the European framework to sort of decide that. Discourse analysis is also like Grammarly. I've never used Grammarly myself, but I don't know. I think it's a commercial. I don't know about Grammarly because I haven't used it, but yeah, it can help. I mean, I haven't used it, but it can help, definitely. Okay, so I think Mr. Ahmed is asking about artificial intelligence or something like that, because if I understand right, it is AI, and AI, as I understand it, it refers to artificial intelligence. Yeah. Corpus-based. Yeah, you mean that? Okay, so I myself have never used artificial intelligence, but some kind of corpus-based sites like the British corpus, the British National Corpus, BNC. I've used that. I've used BNC, and yeah, somebody has provided a link to something. Thank you, Dr. Lamti. Yeah, thank you so much. The British National Corpus will also help you a lot, because it will show you, it will teach you some academic words, and it will show you these words in different contexts. And it will show you the frequency of using these words in academic contexts. And so you will be able to know if the words you are using are academically accepted or not. And also there is the academic word list will also show you, it will tell you about, it will sort of teach you some academic vocab, definitely. Academic word list. It is something that is, there's an agreement upon, and it can, and of course, it is very useful to graduate and postgraduate students. Thank you so much, Dr. Gant. Yes, EAP Foundation. Yeah. So, as a teacher, I mean, I would like, I'm inviting you to look at this quotation from Swells and Feek. Yeah, I used Swells and Feek for this quotation. I got it from there. I should have provided the page number. One way to address e-waste is to install modern, sustainable recycling technology that can drastically reduce exposures to toxins. One drawback to this approach, however, centers around who should be responsible for the cost of installing such systems. Now, I have some questions about this quotation. Okay, it's just sort of analyzing it. And this is what I mean by teaching academic writing in an explicit way. So the word "this approach," what does it refer to? What does it refer back to? Okay, so I'll give you a minute to read it, to read the quote. What does this approach refer to? Ideas? Yeah. What is not opened? Okay. So this approach refers back to the modern technology that needs to be installed, yeah? To the modern technology, to the recycling technology that can the installment of a recycling technology. So basically, yeah, it refers back to the installment of a modern, sustainable recycling technology that drastically reduce exposure to toxins. Yeah, so why does the writer use this approach? Why does the writer use it? Why does the writer say, yes, thank you. Why does the writer say this approach? The writer says this approach because, the writer uses the word this approach because, I mean, words like, yes, I agree, words like referring back, thank you, Fauzia, referring back to something that has already been mentioned, to explain this, to refer back, because the writer does not want to repeat that this approach of installing this and this, to avoid repetition. And this teaches us what? This teaches us, like, repetition is something that is, yes, to avoid redundancy. Well done. Yes, to avoid redundancy. Thank you so much. Yes. So, and that is why this is a tool that is used by expert writers, using reference words. Using reference words in academic writing is something that is highly advisable. Now, the underlined, yes. The underlined, okay, so the problem, how the problem is introduced. How is the problem introduced? Okay. How does the writer introduce a problem? Introduce a problem by highlighting, yes, by highlighting it, by sort of putting it in a context, yeah? The writer does not, I mean, the purpose of the writer is to sort of propose, yeah, I underlined it actually, but the purpose of the writer is actually to sort of propose some solutions for the problem, yeah? By highlighting the importance of having a system that gets installed to, to sort of rid us of the toxins, yeah? Yes. Now, the writer has the underlined sentence. What is the purpose of the underlined sentence? Why does the writer write? Why does the writer says, one drawback to this approach, however, centers around this and this and that. So the writer wants to do what? He wants to do what? To point out what? The writer wants to do what? Okay, so I'm gonna rephrase my question. The writer wants to prepare us to what? Yes, wants the reader to focus on, wants the reader to be prepared for what? To be prepared for Yes, a solution. Thank you so much. Yes, a solution. The writer wants the reader to be prepared for his own proposal of a solution. The writer is saying like this system that has been proposed before is not really good. There's a drawback about it. There's a problem with it. Yeah, the writer is saying there's a problem with it, and that's why the writer is using however, you know, this and that, and you know, the one drawback. The writer is being very explicit. The writer is saying one drawback about this approach, however, is this and this and that. So we as readers, we are now prepared for his own solution. Yeah, for his own solution, because the writer is not going to criticize this solution and put a full stop and that's about it. Yeah, no, the writer is going to propose his own solution. Yeah, now the next question is for the teachers. Yeah, what features of academic writing can this extract and the questions with it be used to teach? What features can we use to teach through this kind of extracts and these kinds of questions? Yeah, being concise is one of them. Thank you. Keep it concise. Thank you. Being concise. What else? Balance. Yes, balance. Yes. Thank you. Clear ideas. Yeah. Using reference language. Using reference language. Yeah. Formality. Formality. Yeah. Stylistic features like, you know, formality, when you have common perception, using common perception, using common knowledge, etc. Yes, yeah. And preparing the reader, you know, being up to the expectations, the reader's expectations, you know, meet the reader's expectations. Yeah. So prepare the reader. Do not just write. Do not just say like, you know, this and being balanced. Say there is a proposal for a solution to move to the next idea. Yes, yeah, sort of prepare the reader and move from one step to another, move from one idea to another in a way that is easy to follow, Yeah, thank you. And we talked about genre anyway. We have done this task. We compared between the two, avoiding redundancy. Thank you, Manal. We have compared between these two texts. We looked at the messages, you know, one of them is an advert, is a commercial advertisement. The other one is, the first one is a business tone or more academic tone. And we looked at the type of flexes, meaning the type of vocab used in both of them. Where can we find them? I mean, the first one can be found in a report, can be found in a magazine, in a journal for businessmen. The other one can be found on something like booking.com or Travago, a traveling and booking, hotel booking website, or a flyer, commercial, etc. Yeah. Now, the type of readership, the type of reader who would be interested in this, and I think we answered that. Is it like businessmen, academics who are studying business, who are studying economics, you know, things like that, business administration. And for the other one, maybe the readers can be travelers, somebody who wants to travel to a place, and you know, they're sort of researching the types of hotels and the types of, you know, places, different hotels. So we would like to know about this hotel. Yeah, they can use all based on the context. Yeah, it's all based on the context. Yeah. So the type of the reader for this text is entirely different from the type of the reader in this text. Yeah, and that is, writers always have the readers in mind. Writers always have the readers in mind. So if I'm addressing a traveler, somebody who's traveling to a place and wants a very nice, beautiful place to stay at, I will of course use words like sophistication and words like prestigious and words like, you know, conveniently located, etc. To attract them. Obviously, I want them to go and stay in that hotel. Yeah. So genre, again, genre. To teach genre, I can use this kind of, you know, comparing, contrasting between two texts, and maybe ask questions about that. Now, this sentences have got some stylistic problems. What we want to do is we want to replace the bolded words with more academic ones. Can we do that? Can you help me? Okay, so the first one, I've lost the chat. Okay, where's the chat? Yeah, okay. The first one, yeah, but it's very sophistication is a great word, yes, but it's a very like I don't know how to describe it, but it is not an academic word. You know, sophistication, because it shows an opinion. It shows an opinion. Yeah, academic writing does not show opinion, and attitude doesn't show opinion, attitude. Now, for the first one, yeah, for the first sentence, given our fast-paced society, people must routinely put creative solutions to unexpected problems into practice. I want to change put into practice to a word to one word that is more academic. Okay, so who's going to help me? The first one. Put into practice. Something that's put into practice. Apply it, I accept, thank you. Apply it, yes, because routinely put into practice, so it has to be the same family or grammar family. Created, no place, no, practiced, put into practice, utilized, I accept, yes, utilized, yeah. Utilize, implemented, apply it. Yeah, the word I have is implemented. Given our fast-paced society, people must routinely implement, it's active, not passive. Creative solutions to unexpected problems, okay? The second one. No, so actually it's if we look at the phrasal verb, because phrasal verbs, the weakness about the first sentence is that it is using phrasal verb, and phrasal verb is not academic. I mean, we shouldn't use phrasal verbs. This is a stylistic problem. Phrasal verbs are not accepted in academic writing. Phrasal verbs are not accepted in academic writing. Yeah, and that is the problem with the first sentence, with sentence A in number 1. That's why we changed it. So in number 2, English has emerged as an international language of scientific communication. This phenomena has been widely documented. And what's my sentence? My sentence is, yes, I thought the sentence, I wanted to sort of summarize these 2 sentences into one single sentence. So I want to cut down on the number of words in number 2. I wanted to cut down on the number of words I'm using. So instead of using 2 sentences, I've sort of summarized it in one single sentence. The emergence. And this is, you know, one of the features that is used a lot in academic writing, nominalization. We call it nominalization. And what is nominalization is using the noun, changing the verb changing the verb into a noun. Yeah. So I had emerged, and I changed that into the emergence of. Okay, without losing the meaning of the sentence. So English has emerged as an international language of scientific communication. This phenomenon has been widely documented. The emergence of English as an international language of scientific communication has been widely documented. Yeah, I've cut down on the number of words I've used using nominalization. That's one of the stylistic features used in academic writing. So far, so good. Okay, and this one. And this one. Now, using the words like so forth, using words like so forth is a big problem, because so forth is really vague. So forth and so on, words like so on, so forth are vague. They create vagueness in your writing. So be more precise. And if you have a list, write your list. Why not? Yeah, like I've done in 3B. I'll show you. Yeah. So instead of using so forth, just, put your list. Okay. And also in number 4, I've summarized it and I've written a shorter sentence in number 4. Again, I've used nominalization in number 4. It may be difficult to make a decision about the method that should be chosen. Choosing the proper method may be difficult. I've cut down on the number of words and I have used nominalization, and it sounds more academic, it's more precise. There's no redundancy. Okay. Okay, so 2 approaches used in academic writing: the product and the process approaches. The product and the process approaches. The product, it focuses on the final product, writing as the final product. And what it does, it provides a model, and then it provides controlled writing, like, you give them a text. Okay, I will slow down. Okay, so a process approach is, a product approach gives a model to the students, and the students copy that model. It's a model. So they just write exactly like the model, yeah? So maybe in the first part is a model. The teacher gives the students a text. Then the teacher gives, the students read it. Then the teacher gives the students a gapped text, and then a text with a gap. And then the students fill up the gaps in that text. They write pretty much like the first text. They simply, supposedly I'm finishing at 9. So this is the product. The product approach is not very effective. I mean, I don't use it, but of course it has its own advantages, definitely. I mean, research gives a lot of advantages for using the product approach. And the product approach looks like the teacher looks, this is the work of the teacher in using a product approach. Yeah. It's just a correction and it's just marking and correction. Yeah. So the role of the teacher is just giving feedback and giving correction and crossing off the mistakes. While the process approach is entirely different. The process approach gives time to planning, drafting, writing, rewriting, editing, revising, so outlining, and sometimes there's collaborative work among the students, when it comes to using the process approach. They can produce work together. They can sit down, draft and redraft, give each other ideas, what to include, not to include, etc., etc. So the process approach gives time for critical thinking, analyzing, evaluating what to include, drafting, redrafting. So it sort of trains the students into the different stages of writing. Yeah, that's it. That's it from me. Any questions? Any comments? You have been a great audience. Thank you.
And yeah, great presentation as well. Thank you, Dr. Summaya, for this wonderful, full of information, details, workshop. We really enjoyed it. I personally enjoyed it and learned a lot from you. And yes, it is very beneficial presentation. So thank you all. Thank you for attending today's workshop. I shared with you 3 links. The first one is the attendance link. Please complete the evaluation form. Make sure to write your name correctly, your email correctly. So we will send you the certificate, inshallah, within 48 hours. The second link is our booking system. Whenever you have any questions, concerns, or you would like someone, our writing specialist, to look at your writing, give you like recommendations or advice, please book appointments with us. And the last one is our YouTube channel. And inshallah, we will upload this wonderful workshop, inshallah, within 24 hours, inshallah. Yeah, I already shared the link with you, and I think we'll have one question, or if you have one question. So I think I'm sorry for, okay. Okay, so thank you. Thank you, Dr. Summaya. Thank you all for attending the workshop. And inshallah, we'll see you inshallah next week. Thank you again, and enjoy the rest of your evening.